I recently was at Gamescom, and this is like a little quick like Gamescom for Dummies talk. That's the idea of it. What is Gamescom? It's in Cologne in Germany. But to give you just the introduction, I guess why I'm doing the talk, and I'll come back to this right at the end, is I got funding, or we got funding from Creative Scotland to go to Gamescom as part of their Go See Share scheme. And the idea is that you go to a place, a festival or a cultural event or an expo or something like that, conference. You see it obviously when you're there, and then you share when you get back. So they want you to kind of disseminate things. And also when I was preparing for the trip, I found there's a lot to know about it. So I thought it might be useful for other people in the audience if you're thinking of going in future years. But anyway, so yeah, what is Gamescom? It's a big games conference basically. It's the biggest one in Europe. It's in Cologne in Germany. It runs for 5 days. And there's potentially another 2 days for DevCon, which is like a conference beforehand. So Gamescom is like an expo, like a public-facing expo, and with trade sections. DevCom is like a developer conference that runs before. So in total, you could go for 7 days. It has 335,000 visitors, the last one, the one that just happened. And for comparison, EGX, which is the biggest expo in the UK, has got 75,000 visitors. So it is really, really huge. Absolutely bloody huge. And why did we go to Gamescom? Why would you want to go to Gamescom? You can play cool games. That's why obviously a lot of people are there, members of the public, they're playing games. You can show off your game. That's kind of the main reason I went. You can meet other developers, lots of other developers there. Make business deals. That's a big kind of thing as well, that's obviously not so public facing, but there's a big kind of floor space and a big amount of people there who are kind of doing trade deals. You can learn about making games, and that's particularly part of the DevCon bit, which is like developer talks, a bit like this, but probably, you know, well, more like Kyle's and less like this one, more professional. So here, what do you get? What are the areas and the events of Gamescom? There's a big entertainment area that's like, I think about 8 halls they have, and you've got everyone from like Xbox have got an enormous stand there, and you know, Genshin Impact had a whole, you know, mini village, I think, and Civilization 7, you could play that, and all of these new upcoming games, as well as loads of indie games. There was a whole hall which was just indie games. There was like hundreds of us there, and that's all public facing. And you can get a pass for that for like 60 euros a day, I think, something like that, or 30 euros, but it's not too much. The business area, there's like 2 halls, and each hall's got like 2 floors as well, by the way. 2 halls which are just businesses, and like Microsoft have got an enormous sort of walled off area, and then there's an area with all the countries on. I found this quite funny. They had like Spain had a really nice booth where you could like see inside and get a bit of like cheese and wine or whatever in the evening, and like Italy had a nice booth, and Germany had a really nice one with sofas, and they had beers and stuff. And then the UK booth was a big walled off space that you needed to go through a checkpoint to get into, and like, have you got a meeting here? Are you booked in? And it was very sort of strict, very kind of like, when you're in Europe it kind of stood out. Anyway, yeah, DevCom, I didn't go to that actually because 5 days was enough for me. That runs before the whole event. You need a separate ticket for that. And then Gamescom Congress, which is like another sort of trade event, but it's more about the culture and kind of like business of showcasing games rather than game development itself. It's more like the kind of peripheral stuff, I suppose. Lots going on though. And if you want to exhibit, so this is what we did. Thanks to Creative Scotland. We were part of the Home of Indies booth, which was the middle one there. There's a few options for independent kind of games. Indie Arena booth is like the big kind of one they have there. The slightly more well decorated, slightly more organised one. You have to apply there. You still have to pay even if you get accepted, and it's not cheap either. 2,500 euros for a small stand. But yeah, we weren't. I did apply for that. We weren't accepted, unfortunately. But so Home of Indies is a sort of smaller, slightly. It's still like fine, but you know, slightly less prominent sort of booth, sort of area. So there was about 50 developers on that stage. I think Home of Indie Arena booth had like 100 developers maybe, or close to that. So it's similar, but you didn't. They weren't so you didn't have to apply. You just pay the money, sort of thing. You can also get a DIY stand. I did look at that, but obviously there's a bit more work in terms of actually constructing it and everything. But those can be a bit. You can get more space for less money if you want to go that route and don't mind filling in all the forms. I would say I found that Germany has a reputation for bureaucracy, and Gamescom was no sort of disappointment in that area. There was lots of forms, and every form was in a different place on a different website with a different login that you needed, and some of them were emailed to me, some of them I found a link on a Discord, and it was sort of like a weird ARG. But yeah, I think if you were running your own stand, you'd definitely be in for a lot more of that. But it's tempting because our booth was. This is a little picture of our booth. It was really tiny, but we had a good spot in the corner there. So yeah, if you are thinking of exhibiting, some little tips. Be careful with the artwork. You can see our main character is sort of hidden behind the monitor. I hadn't really kind of thought to measure the heights of everything, and really should have printed the logo should have been right higher up, and the key art, the characters should have been a bit higher up. It wasn't easy actually to get the dimensions of the booth. I had to email a few times. So, I mean, we had people next to us whose artwork was just too small for the whole board. So, we didn't do too badly. Yeah, as I was saying, German bureaucracy, lots of forms to get through, but it's worth doing it. There was one form that I randomly found to get us into the Gamescom Steam event, and that ends up being a huge kind of sort of wish list, and if I hadn't found that and filled it out, it would have been a big shame. In terms of actually on the day, hone your pitch. It was good for me in a way, because I'm not used to pitching the game to explaining it to people, but after doing it 50 times a day or whatever for 5 days, I think I got good at it, and I got to see what people were responding to. Explain the game clearly, what makes it interesting, ask people to wishlist it or whatever you're trying to get out of it. Yeah, I found I'd never really picked up the fact that it was a Scottish studio, and our game Cracker Nuts is based on a Scottish fairy tale, but a German audience and sort of broader European audience found that quite interesting. It was like a point of differentiation, I suppose. And yeah, last thing, builds need to be tight. I mean, if you've done any show, you probably kind of are aware of that, but I think at a show like this, people have even less patience for bugs or problems. If they're having an issue, they'll probably just go and play a different game, right? They're not going to have the patience for you to restart the build or fiddle with it or whatever. And a tracked mode is really great to have as well. We didn't have one on the first day, and then afterwards I added one in, and what that basically is like a little rolling video of just some clips of the game, like a short trailer or something, just so people, if they're walking by and no one's playing it at the moment, they can sort of see what they're getting themselves in for. If you just have a static screen, people are going to be nervous. They'll be like, they won't know what they're kind of sitting down to. And yeah, doing business. This is an actual picture of all the business cards that I picked up. It was like a lot. And that was a big part of why we went as well. If you get an exhibitor pass or a trade pass, you can get into all the trade halls. If you get a public pass, they'll turn you away. So make sure you get the right pass for that. There's a separate system called Meet to Match, which, if you've done other events, they run the kind of meeting system at events in the UK and I think all over the place. But that seems to be what everyone was using. You can sign up for this thing, I think for €100, and then it will give you a list of all of the publishers and other developers and localization companies and PR companies and everyone who's attending, and you can look through and go okay, I'm looking for publishers who are interested in deals of a certain size, or I'm looking for localization companies, and you can sort of see who you want to meet with and sort of schedule meetings that way. It's worth signing up for that and making sure your profile is up to date and you've got all your details on there. It's a big place, so allow a bit of time to walk between meetings, 10, 15 minutes. And make sure you've got a pitch deck, obviously, to show them. The meetings there were half an hour long typically, or maybe a bit shorter if people were leaving to go to another meeting, but yeah. And then how to survive. Yeah, it's a long conference. I did WASD in London, that was 3 days, and I only did 2 days of it, and at the end of 2 days I was feeling like I was completely wiped out. And this was 5 days, so I was really worried. But we got through it. We got an extra seat for our booth. We had to pay for the extra seat, and there was some other people next to us who hadn't realised and only had one seat and we had very sore legs at the end of it. Make sure you take someone else. Don't try and do it on your own. I think it's just impossible. You have to be able, have someone to swap with. You know, it's open from 9 a.m. I think until 8 p.m. Sleep, yeah. I was thinking like I'll go to parties in the evening. Certainly when I've been to like developer other events, I've done that a bit and gone to parties. But this, I think I went to one event and I was still home at the Airbnb for like 11 o'clock. If you're exhibiting, I think definitely try and get some sleep. Drink plenty of water and don't forget to eat. Food actually wasn't too bad inside the expo, although it was quite expensive. And what did we get out of it? What can you expect to get out of it, I suppose? We got about 800 wish lists, which for us was pretty good because we were sitting on about 400 before. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a tremendous amount, but we did have quite a small booth and, you know, a fairly small presence. Most of those wish lists came from the Steam event that we were part of, though, so that was kind of interesting. We definitely got some from the in-person, you know, thing, but looking at the stats, it's like probably 60 or 70% came from the Steam event that we were part of. We didn't get much attention from press and interviews. Some Chinese outlet came and interviewed me that I hadn't heard of, and I think someone else interviewed my colleague at one point. But I think, to be honest, at an event like that, because it's so big, you know, most press outlets are only maybe sending a couple of people or something, so they're going to be covering all the big titles and some of the bigger indies. But I had more attention when I went to like WAS, because it's a smaller event. You still maybe have one person from a lot of the outlets, but they're going to cover more of the stuff that's there. We got some, I think, decent leads from publishing. I had like one really good meeting and 2 or 3 kind of okay meetings, but certainly some stuff to follow up with there. Yeah, we got invited to a Steam event, which is going to be good. I'm more excited about that now I've seen the power of Steam events. We got a lot of excited players, which was really nice. Loads of people coming up and just going, it looks beautiful, it's really nice, I'm really interested, and sort of making a point of wish listing it right there and sort of just telling you that they were really interested in it. And I think that made me excited about the game. You know, it's easy when you're working on something for ages to get a bit kind of like used to it and a bit bored, not bored by it, but you know, you sort of like don't see it how other people see it. So it was great to see that perspective and get energized. But yeah, and that's about wrapping up. So yeah, thank you to Creative Scotland for funding it. If you're interested in doing, have a look at their thing, although I think they've cut their funding a bit, but yeah, maybe they'll bring that back next year, I don't know. But yeah, so that's it, a quick one. It was a bit longer than I thought, nearly 15 minutes.